Welcome to the Town of Hilton Head Island Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force meeting. This is Monday, June the 5th. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Our parent, if my mic is on, do you have? You have me?
Simmons?
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay. I was checking to make sure that we are in compliance with FOIA.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. Call the roll for me now, please.
Certainly. Mr. Simmons?
Present.
Abdul Malik?
Present.
Campbell?
Present.
I did not hear from Ms. Green.
I had reached out to her. She's not going to be able to make it today.
Thank you. Mr. Hands?
Present.
Right?
Present.
And Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have an agenda set before us, and at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda if there are no revisions or changes.
So moved.
Mr. Hintz has moved, and Mr. Simmons has second. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, we do have our minutes from the May 1st meeting. And if there are no observations or revisions, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve those minutes from our May 1st meeting. The Hintz has moved. Mr. Campbell has second. Okay, all in favor? Carries unanimously as well. Okay, do we have any appearance by citizens?
No, sir.
Did see that in the portal.
Received no comments to the portal.
I'm sorry?
Received no comments to the portal.
Okay, great. Thank you. Here now. Is anyone here present now that would like to speak? Okay, great. I want to take a moment and pause and certainly recognize those who are in our audience, and then one in particular, Thomas Bonwell Jr., who just recently celebrated a birthday. So we want to take a minute and wish you a very happy birthday, and thank you for all that you do for this community. As we say, if I had known you was coming, I would have baked you a cake. So I will get you a cake later on. We do appreciate everything you do for us here in our community, Mr. Brown. Well, I know which one it is. I didn't want to put it out there, but if you don't mind us sharing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the recognition. And thank all of you as members of this fantastic group for all that you're doing. To answer your question, I'm only 88, going on 119.
Thank you, young man. And at this time, we'll go to the next item. We have our staff report. First item is the Home Safety and Repair Program update. Practicing your name. So this is Nikte.
Good afternoon, Nikte Barrientos. Since our last update, we have only received one new application with the 13 homes still under contract. We hit a little setback with the permitting process on some of the homes, but our team has been handling the situation accordingly, and we are now moving through, and one of the contractors will be in next Monday to finally pick up the permits. But with that being said, none of the repairs have started yet. And as soon as those have started, then we will keep you updated on the progress. The program is also switching point of contacts, and that will no longer be me. So unfortunately, this might be my last time in front of you for home safety, but the point of contact will be Chris Yates, our building official. I'm working on sending out letters to our current applicants just to inform them of the change and who to contact moving forward.
So you've been promoted?
No, not yet.
Do you have questions for Nick Tay, anyone about this?
So applicants, the application process will still come through you, that being,
No, that will be through Chris Yates now, yes. So I will no longer be handling any of the new applications coming through. I will be here to assist Chris and the rest of the team with, as we transition through, but moving forward, it won't be through me anymore.
department. Chris is with the department.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a list, can we see the list of applicants, or is that private information to know who were selected for the project? Or, because I did have a person that was interested and wanted to know where they were on the list, so I was just curious as to.
I will have to ask about that.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't want to say yes or no, but
Okay, okay. Is there a phone number for Chris?
yes, there is. I can share that with you.
Okay, thank you,
Absolutely.
and good luck.
Thank you.
But we also had another question, Ms. Wright, we had talked about with the funding.
Yeah, I think when we discussed on at our last meeting, we were asking in regards to whether or not the funding will have a rollover and whether or not that money would be available going forward. So if
It
it's
has
not
rolled
being-
over.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
The money has rolled over from 2021 to now, and will continue to.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Nick Tay.
I think I'm here
Well-
next as well, so.
You have the next item as well?
Yes.
Very good. Connection.
For sewer, we have not had any new applications since March 23rd. I have gotten a few inquiries, but no applications from Deepwell yet. Get on that.
Questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Hens.
This is not something that I suspect you'd be able to answer, but what if we or someone town wanted to make sewer hookups mandatory? If we found a funding source, I wonder if take that mandatory on Hilton.
Answer that at the moment, but
Thank
we
you,
can
Nancy.
definitely.
Have some help here.
My name is Brian, and I'm the Development Services Manager for the town of Hilton Head. It's a very good question, one that often comes up. A few years ago, in 2017 and 18, the town did extend a lot of the sewer mains throughout areas of the town that did not have sewer possibilities of connection. It's my understanding we cannot force anyone to connect to the main. If they have an operable system in place, they have the septic tank that's functional, septic tank that's working, a septic field that's also working. We do highly encourage it because of the ramifications of not connecting, but that's upon failure of the system. The state will then say you can no longer add a second septic field or a second septic tank to your site. You must connect to the town sewer if it's available at your location. So that's traditionally how that's been done here in South Carolina. It's not something that's forced upon anyone. It's something that we make available, we've made available, and if and when their system does fail, then that's when they would connect.
So at least we've stopped adding additional septic systems.
Correct. The project,
Can't do that anymore.
right, in 2017, we extended most of what had zero sewer connections available to people. We did extend the mains, and then they connect their service to the mains. And then that's part of the program that Nick Tate was speaking to, where we assist financially their connection from their house to the mains that we installed 2017, 2018. Thank you.
If I could, Brian,
Yes.
how you doing?
Great, you?
I'm fantastic, man. My understanding is that the Spanish Wells community, in the very end of Spanish Wells, that whole community is on individual septic systems. All right?
Partially, but we did extend as part of that a large portion of up to, he's talking about before you get to Spanish Wells
I'm
Gate.
talking about the private community.
Yeah, the private community before you get to Spanish Wells. We did extend sewer there in 2017 and 18 as well. That it should have been close to where their main road was, their driveway was. Some cases we went up the driveway if we had an easement to do so. But I know there were a couple of areas off of Spanish Wells where neither the town nor Hilton Head PSD was able to secure an easement. So there may be a few isolated spots that
But the majority
the main's not there, but the majority is, yes, sir.
are on septic system. So as a community, that community decided they didn't want to do the sewer hookup, is that?
That's correct. They
And
didn't
the
at
county
that
up
time.
there cannot force them into it.
We have not forced anyone into it, but we've made it available on the roadway, on that side of the road, so that if and when the time comes that their system, their community system does fail, they can directly connect to the mains.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On their tax bill, they still are paying for sewer, am I correct? No, if there's a hookup there, are they still paying for the sewer hookup on their
Okay.
taxes?
But that's a little bit, I don't know the answer to that. I have not seen their tax bill. I do not know the answer to that.
That's what I thought. It's like, even though you do have a sewer connection, you're not connected to sewer, that you still pay for sewer in your taxes.
John, if I may, that was on tax bill for a long time, but it was fought against. And I believe maybe as recently as 2, maybe 3 years ago, it was removed.
Okay.
So they were referring to it as a sewer accessibility fee, and it was on your taxes. But again, people fought against it, and it was removed. Yes,
So-
it may have been just a recent removal, but it was removed.
A really good question. I'd like to get a response back to you in writing.
Okay.
So could we make sure that we include that and get that information back to him? Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Question of clarity.
Anytime, any questions?
So, other than, any private gated communities, it was accessible to all the residents otherwise.
That's my understanding, yes, sir. I mean, I've watched it go in several locations throughout the island as a part of that effort in 2017. And I think it covered all of the yet encumbered areas that did not have sewer available to them at that time, so. And as new development happens or as expansions happen, we do request that they extend and provide sewer. We've had will-serve letters from the PSD throughout the historic districts here on the island, so I think we're pretty well covered.
I can provide some insight on that from PSD. PSD's position is that they are 96% complete.
Right.
In terms of where they are with potential sewer connections, only 4% of the, I would say, non-gated communities may still have an opportunity to be hooked up to the sewer.
I think you're correct, and I think you've hit upon some of the more difficult, challenging areas there on Spanish Wells. I know there were 2 neighborhoods down there that were, did not take us up on the offer for a sewer main because they did not want to give easement rights to the PSD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes your report on the sewer. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Nick Tay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, our next item is the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio.
Good afternoon. Oh, wow. Okay, so much like the home safety repair and sewer connect for the last month or so, or even just during this kind of the spring season, has been a little bit slower activity. I don't know if everybody got, all their questions answered and things like that earlier in the year, but it's been a little bit slow for us too. So since the May meeting, we've had one new request in the design studio, and it was a pretty straightforward request, so we were able to complete that one pretty much immediately. So, but then there are a number of, what we consider active projects, folks that we're waiting to hear back from, whether they were going to get a new survey or, already building, what have you. So we keep those projects active until we receive an application or until we've, communicated with the applicant to close that out. So we're still open and active for business, but haven't had many requests this month. And in the August meeting, I plan to provide some case study information on the ones that we have had so far since I've been here, and can just kind of do a deep dive a little bit into the program as well, just to see where things are and get any feedback or anything that we might want to have. So we'll keep that in mind. I have that on the agenda planning document for August. And that's all I have for I'm sorry, I'm always thinking about home safety, for the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio.
Questions?
Brian Eber, Development Services Manager. So you would fill out an application with the town, and the first thing it asks you for is what's your address. We didn't even have an address request form from the town. So having worked closely with Krishana over the last few months here, we found some deficiencies in our application process. We've made improvements to that. I'd like to bring some of the packet together. We're thinking of implementing townwide to you all, so you can see it. Maybe also, I value your thoughts and opinions on the application process. We've tried to lay it out in a step by 1, 2, 3, 4 format, instead of saying, well, here's 3 applications, you need to fill all 3 out, but we're not sure which ones you need yet, but you probably need the first 2. We've tried to button that up in a really more productive manner. Krishana's been heavily involved with that as well, so it's something we're excited in the coming months to bring forth to the public. But before it goes there, if you guys would be so willing, I'd like to share that with you all before that goes public.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
In that regard, you were speaking about the permitting process, right?
Yes.
Are we at a point where everything that needs to be done in regards to a permit can be done here on Hilton Head, or do we still have to go between here and Beaufort?
Because it's property, you still have to go between here and Beaufort. But we've found some processes that streamline and help reduce that time lag. So we had a hard hold on when things could move forward because we were awaiting certain documents back from Beaufort County for the mobile home, the manufactured home. So we've been able to streamline some of the processes so that the applicant really doesn't feel that weight nearly like they did in the past. So we think that we've made some wins and some achievements on paper, a few in the field, but really on paper, we think we've improved that process because people do have to go there because it's Beaufort County state really mandate.
And the reason why I asked that is because we promoted this program as a one-stop shop. You know, if we're going to be true to that promotion, I think
Well, the family compound and family subdivision is truly a one-stop shop. But when it comes time to actually place the manufactured home on the site, it still requires sign off from Beaufort County because it's considered not property, it's considered, they have to tag it. There's certain tags that have to be on the facilities that don't normally have to. So only Beaufort County can generate that. But we've also opened up the line of communications with Beaufort County in a little bit different way. So hopefully, do it with my smile. It's a different people are now pushing this and advancing this issue.
Okay, because again, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I've heard sentiments from persons that were engaged with Beaufort County that said that they wish that Hilton Head would just take this and just handle it because they could. They had the potential to do it. Now I don't know again what's missing in that dialogue, but I've heard several people mention that Beaufort County had expressed that.
Because of that, the way I understand the rules that are in place, they still do have to go to Beaufort County to get their tag in order for it to go on the manufactured home.
I had one question, Brian.
Yeah.
So there is just one permit, right? For everyone.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. If it's just one manufactured home on one lot, then there's not a second application that's needed. So if you want to do more than one manufactured home on one lot, then there's two applications. But typically, there's always two applications for mobile home placement.
So, but permitting period, there's only one application form
Yes,
for everyone.
yes, ma'am.
So that service everyone.
Yes.
And I asked that only because you said that you would like us to review the process of the permitting. I just want to make sure that it's available for anyone else to review as well as just the task force, or is that because of the task force or?
Well, we're getting ready to unveil it, as it were. So as it becomes publicly available, I want everyone to be able to see it and everyone to be able to comment on
Okay.
it. I want to reach out to the people that are moving the manufactured homes to the island, so they may have a process improvement that we should consider before stopping. And it's an evolving system. It doesn't need to stay stagnant.
Correct.
Let's listen to what the applicants want and listen to what their needs are. So a year from now, it'll look different.
Which is important to hear voices. Thank you.
Wanted to comment on the portion of the permitting that's involved with mobile homes, mainly for tax purposes, and how mobile homes are taxed is why still will have to go to the county. And the county is the basis for our taxes.
They are.
That's why if it was anything other than a mobile home, it wouldn't necessarily have to go to Beaufort. But since mobile homes are taxed different, residential or otherwise, not so much as a residential structure is taxed because it is mobile. So therefore is where Beaufort has to play a role into the permitting process. Unless the town is going to start some taxation, which we don't need any more of.
I'm not advocating that. No, not me.
Continue to go to Beaufort for that portion of it.
But how we communicate and how that's done, I think we're improving that process.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, and that was going to be a part of my question too. If we're talking about something other than, mobile homes. That's the only situation that we have where people have to go to Beaufort.
That's correct, sir.
Could I just ask one more question on in light of what was just mentioned? Now, the county can regulate the tax, right? The county regulates the tax,
They do. Yes, sir.
but Hilton Head couldn't just collect the tax and then send the county their portion? That I know now, in the past, it was a situation where the county was taking money and just sending, like Impact Fee, for instance, I believe. They would take the money and then or either the town would take it or the county would take it, and the other entity would just send it over to whoever. So again, I understand the county regulating the tax, When you're talking about, it's just a matter of us collecting it and sending it to Beaufort, how difficult is that?
It's a good question.
Okay, all right. Just a question I throw out there,
I don't know that's something we can necessarily just do. It's a good question.
It's probably not likely that you would, because the county has to assess, to make the assessment of the taxes. So unless it was a way for them to make the assessment without getting the permit, it'd be difficult for them to assess it without having received that permit. And then once they assess it, they then too just simply collect the tax. It's not a town tax, it's a county tax.
Right.
That would probably be made a little difficult.
But that couldn't be done digitally? I mean, I don't think the county never came and looked at the property that my son just set up. They got the date, they got the model, and they told him how much the tax was gonna be.
Guessing that the town then collect that tax and send back.
Right. If you wanna make it a one-stop shop.
Sounds like another step though.
That
Yeah.
sounds like another step to me too, as
Sounds
far
like it's
as
gonna create another
like
step.
change the policy,
It's slow
certainly the way that it's been done.
I also just want to note that the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio is a one-stop shop for inquiries. So technically, when you're in the design studio, you haven't submitted an application yet. It's a place for us to help people fill out their applications, understand what they need to do in order to get done the mobile home placement or, commercial or what have you. We also offer help with business license applications. So it's a place, so in case folks don't know where to go in the town and they don't have to, run around and come to, the revenue office and then to the building services department and then to community development. It's a place to kind of bring folks together. So it's, and what we see a lot of the times in the design studio setting is mobile home placement. So that's just one item that comes out of, that's, available for us to provide additional support to the community is the mobile home placement process. So that process in and of itself is separate from the design studio, but the design studio is meant to help, streamline communication because there are several different divisions within the town that are involved in that process. So that's kind of where the one-stop shop designation comes from, is the actual permitting and design studio can handle a number of different things and make sure that folks don't have to, run around the town asking, hey, do you know who to call for this? Hey, do you know? And they can just come to the design studio and we can help facilitate that process. And then with the mobile home placement, like checklists and steps and applications and such, we can put that as a part of discussion items for an upcoming meeting. And then that way it will be public, but it will be draft. And then we can do some feedback and review on that. And that can, the public will be privy to that. And then we can get your explicit feedback as well on that. So we can definitely do that. And Brian and our team have been putting together a whole packet to make things a little bit more streamlined and clear. So we can definitely bring that before the task force and get some feedback on that before we publish it.
And so it sounds like the design studio is one-stop shop in terms of information and education.
Yes. And then we also, we do provide some other services like the site planning for where to place your mobile home or any other home or business or parking at your current home or helping with landscaping, ideas, things like that. We have our design professional on staff that helps provide that as well. So there's a few other things that can be done too, but it's any of the applications or permits or anything like that folks want to pursue, they can come to the design studio to get more information about that, and then our team can help to just put them right in touch with the right people or even gather the materials for them and just provide that additional communication and support. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item is our town open positions update. Are you doing that as well, Krishana?
Yes, sir. So we hadn't had any updates. I think the last meeting or maybe the last two meetings, we hadn't really had much to update, so we didn't provide a separate item for it. But we have a little bit of activity going on now, so wanted to share just some specific details on that. So we are still hiring for our workforce housing program manager and now a position, the town architect. Those have been reposted and a little bit repositioned to help with the recruiting efforts on that. And those remain some of our priority positions to fill. We've recently filled several key positions, or a couple key positions in our department, in the community development department. As you know, we had a handful of vacancies, and so we have our new senior planner over environmental, Alex Pinkney, has been hired and started last week. And we also have our principal planner, a new principal planner in the community development department, doing advanced planning and analysis research related to the LMO and the strategic plan, helping to provide some additional hands on all the work that's going on there. So we are very excited to have filled some of those positions and help to level out the workload for everyone in the department. And then we also are expecting a candidate to start in a couple weeks for the community planning manager, which is the role directly above mine, who I would report to. So we will be sure to provide a formal introduction to that person whenever they do start. They're due to start in a couple weeks. So wanted to let you know about that. And then a couple other items. We have our cultural affairs internship. It usually happens annually. And so that is actually open. So if you know anyone who's looking for an opportunity to do the type of work that Natalie Harvey does in our Office of Cultural Affairs, supporting her with that, arts, Gullah Geechee, events, museums, all that jazz. They'll be helping out with that. And then I'm especially excited to announce our 2023 summer internship program, which is for high school students and college students. And so I just wanted to bring your attention to that as well as to the community. Anybody who's listening, just want to read a little bit about what that summer internship program would look like. So it's going to offer a unique program that spans all seasons for high school students and a summer opportunity for college students. As an intern, they will have a chance to work in various departments of the town, local government, including community development, the administration, and fire rescue. It is a paid internship, and it offers a great opportunity to gain hands-on experience in public administration, project management, and community relations. Some of the responsibilities will include assisting with planning and implementing community programs and events, conducting research on various projects related to town operations and fire rescue services, and learning about the operations of local government and public service. Applicants must be currently enrolled in high school or an accredited college or university and have an interest in public administration, emergency services, or related field. So I'm really excited about that and hoping that we get some great applicants for that program. And that concludes the town open positions update. Are there any questions?
Just one comment. I spoke with Mr. Campbell, who was invited some young men to be with us, so we want to say welcome. Them, always like to see some younger faces in our meetings, and hopefully we'll have an interest. And I'm not sure if they heard all of that information or not, but there are some opportunities for internships, so I encourage you young men to maybe look into that and see if that's something that might interest you, especially over the summer. So thank you for being here. Some of the things we've been talking about, I'm sure, in various parts of the community in terms of grooming the next generation of community involvement and community leaders. So I'm
Absolutely.
excited about that program too. I know we
Really
talked about
excited.
a little bit about that.
And if anyone wants more information about any of those positions, closing application dates and the actual application, you can visit the town's website, and it is linked on the packet, so you can find it
That
there.
was to be my next question now. What you just shared with us, is that information on the website as well? Very good. Yeah. Yes.
And Krishana, I'm assuming you have a robust outreach into our local schools?
I am assuming so, but Human Resources is doing all the recruiting for the position, for those positions, and I have also sent it out to a number of groups in the community as well.
An active outreach as opposed to just posting and
Right.
waiting would be.
Exactly. I definitely think that our Human Resources Director is doing that, and I've also just personally been doing that because it's an important thing to me. So.
Are there any opportunities like that that exist through our chamber, Tom?
Posting those, yes, yes. If someone could get that information to me, help get that word out. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I did. I had I heard you when you were reading, but did you say it was paid as well?
It is.
Oh, it's a stipend for them for the entire time, and how long is the program?
So for high school students, it can be any year round, and for college students, it's just for the summer. And so I'm not exactly sure of how the pay cycle works, if they're going to be getting a stipend or if they're getting a weekly paycheck, but it is paid still. So we can clarify that. They can reach out to the Human Resources Director, and she can answer any questions about the position. I don't think the pay is not posted for the internship. For most of our other positions, the pay is posted, but for the internship, I didn't see it, so.
So, and I heard you say that they have to be in a accredited school or in high school. So if you have a student who is transitioning, just graduated, getting ready to go to college, they are qualified as well?
I believe so. I have to double check, but I think as long as they're enrolled in college to start in the fall, they should be eligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, now that's a very interesting point as well, though. I mean, students who are homeschooled not be,
If they're in high school, they would be eligible.
homeschooled.
Right, they can be homeschooled and be in high school and be eligible, but if they're a college student and they're maybe doing an online program, or is that what you're?
I'm probably referring more to high school students, but folks who, again, do homeschooling, they're not enrolled in school.
For the designation for high school, it is be a high school student. And then for college, it's enrolled in an accredited university. But if you're homeschooled, then you usually are attached at least to a school or a program, like an accredited program through like the county, through the district. So they would still qualify.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, general staff updates. I'm assuming that's you as well, Christiana.
That's me. I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I might talk through this pretty fast. So if you have any questions, please stop me or ask. I also just want to note the new technology in the room. If you haven't noticed, these computers right in front of you, and as you can see, it actually will show what's on the big screen on your screen. So, but you don't have any controls. So you'll just see what's on here. So I've been trying to move through here so that you can also see it on there. So if you could let me know if you still prefer to have a physical copy of the agenda, given that these new screens are here, that would be great. And then my general staff update section here is just to keep, more communication between this position and the task force, and just let you all know some of the other activities and things that we've been doing that may not make it into some of those specific staff report items that we have recurring. So I call this my lightning round. This is what I call it when I'm preparing for the meeting. So this is my lightning round. Stick with me and hopefully you get some good information here. Just a reminder that the July meeting is currently canceled. So we will take our summer break then and pick back up in August. I know Ms. Joyce Wright has some flyers for Juneteenth with Historic Mitchellville Freedom Park. The town, and especially my position, will be out at the Juneteenth Festival on Saturday, June 17th, and we are excited to celebrate and have our table out there. I also wanted to bring to your attention that the Planning Commission will be going on the Gullah Mobile Tour on June 7th as a part of their board training. So as you know, boards and commissions have required training hours that they're supposed to do. And so the Planning Commission will be gaining some of those hours by going on a Gullah Mobile Tour. You all are welcome to attend. It's also open to the public. So just let me know if you'd like to attend so I can put your name down. That's June 7th. I think it's at 1 p.m. but I'll have to double check the time. 2 o'clock. Yes, I think that's right. Thank you, Tom. And in case you all were not tuned into the May 16th Town Council meeting, both Chairman Stevens and I gave our Gullah Geechee work plan and task force updates to Town Council, and that was received well. It was a general update. It was exactly what we shared before you in the April meeting for your review. And so we will also be working towards, full comprehensive updates on not only the top 16, but the full report coming to you in August. So we'll keep working on that. I've had an opportunity to be out in the community a number of times doing individual introductions, still introducing myself to the community and still being just showing up to various events and still learning and everything. So thought you'd be happy to hear that. I recently went to Mr. Barnwell's Tabby Ruins and looked at, and was able to do a presentation or hear a presentation from the team that did the restructuring or reconstruction or restoration, sorry, of that building and some of the history of that space, and that was really great to hear. And meeting with folks from other nonprofits in the communities, like the Circles program at Deepwell, which if you haven't heard about it, it's a wonderful program that provides a way out of poverty for people in our community. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring them to the task force meeting and share a little bit about what they're doing, some of the folks in the communities that they're reaching, and just continue to share resources across the community. So if you'd be interested in that, I can plan for that later this year, maybe in October or so, for the Circles director to come in and give a presentation to share. They are serving a number of people in historic neighborhoods. I thought it would be a good time to share. You can let me know about that as we're planning. You also have a flyer in your packet up there for the June 10th forestry workshop that Luana Grave Sellers of the Low Country Gullah Foundation, the Center for Heirs Property Preservation in the town of Hilton Head are putting on for the community, showing some information about sustainable land use and forestry options for the community. We also have some more of those flyers at the front, on the table if you want to take any with you on your way out. Another item, bear with me, I have just a couple more. Taylor Family Park, I'm sure you've heard of that option, that park that's in our capital investments program. It is coming down the pipeline and is ready to be in planning and design stage, and they are planning a community meeting to get the community's input that's directly affected by that park and what type of amenities and how they'd like to see that park laid out. That will be, the proposed date right now is June 27th at 6 p.m. at Rowing and Sailing. So members of the Squire Pope Historic Neighborhood can come out and share their ideas and their concerns or needs around that park. It'll be on, the address is, I think it's Old Wild Horse Road, and we'll have to, I can, share more information about that when it comes, but I wanted to let you know about that. As it is still, a comment that I'm hearing out in the community that we need more parks in the historic neighborhoods. So that's an active project.
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, you can probably share that information with us. Not necessarily the exact address, but the physical location.
Yeah, it's, if you're coming off of Gumtree Road, it's past Johnson Greenery on the left-hand side. That park is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite have an address yet, I don't think, so.
Address, there's a plaque there. That's about,
Plaque there.
yeah, there's a plaque.
Yeah, so we encourage folks to attend that, and we'll share more information when the meeting is
The actual
planned.
size of the park or anything, or is that mentioned? Or?
I don't have that in Rowing and Sailing, so can give some directions on how to see where the actual space is. And then just my last thing that I wanted to just bring your attention to is that we had the first historical meeting of the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Corporation last month. And yeah, what month is it? It's June. Okay, yes, last month. And it was just an honor to be able to be there. New board members were sworn in. There was a fantastic historic presentation delivered at the meeting by Zendaya Irvin, our assistant town clerk, who will be working with the board for the CDC. And it was a great opportunity to be there. It was just beginning some administrative work and talking about the schedule of meetings and such. And so just wanted to give you a little summary about that. And then the next meeting will actually occur this week as well, and they'll be talking about the proposed meeting schedule for those meetings for the rest of the year. And that will be Wednesday, June 7th at 9 a.m. to get that right. All right. And that's all I have. So thank you for bearing with me, but want to keep you updated on all the things that we're working on behalf of the community and getting together on our end.
We're excited about the Community Development Corporation coming online, and certainly working hand in hand with some of the initiatives that we are dealing with here with the task force, particularly when it comes to our science studio, resource for us when folks are trying to do something but their property or have questions about what they can do. And the next question is, where can I find resources to actually get something done? So hopefully the Community Development Corporation will be able to help us with that. We'll be looking to support them in any way we can and be an active arm for some of the things that are coming down the pipe with that Community Development Corporation. Other questions for Krishana? I'm sorry, Mr. Henson.
Sorry, I know I covered a lot of information there.
That was good. I like that. Lightning. When you present in August, the 16, the update for the 16, and then the rest on our to-do list, if you will, if you could maybe provide the update to us prior to the meeting so that we're not hearing it for the first time, so we can kind of gear up on it in case we might have some questions or want to follow up, that'd be really helpful.
Absolutely, we'll work to.
There's a lot on your plate there.
We will make sure that that is, the packet is published for that, maybe a little bit earlier, so you have more time to review it. Yeah, but it'll be posted.
Have to make sure we do our homework. Malik?
The Community Development Corporation, should we expect regular updates from you regarding the progress that they're making at this meeting?
That's a great point. If you'd like regular updates, we can definitely work that in. I hadn't planned for it, but we can work it in if that's something that would be of interest to anyone.
I would value it.
Okay, absolutely.
And the meeting at the Rowan Center, you said is it June 20th?
What was that?
Rowan Center meeting,
June 27th at 6 p.m.
June 27th.
Yes, sir. And that's proposed. We wanted to kind of try to check with the community first and see if that was a good time and location for folks. And so it seems, we've talked to a few people and it seems like it would be a good time and location. It's a Tuesday night. So I think we're going to go forward with that date, but we'll confirm. And information will be sent out to people to get folks there.
Other questions?
I had a comment. I think it would be at some point, once things are up and running with the Development Corporation, really nice if we can have some kind of synergy between the two of us, that we can meet at least one time, once a year or something, just to kind of have a brainstorming, session or something, just so that we can all be on the same path and understanding that we're working for the same purpose. And not an overlap on things that we're having to do as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point. And I think that will be clear once some of the work activities get going with the CDC. And I think we'll definitely, with the task force, focus our attention on the report, on the Gullah Geechee Cultural Preservation Project report. We'll focus a lot of our efforts on that and making sure that we're getting that done. And we'll let the CDC, work in their lane, and we'll keep working on those things. Yeah. So that's a good point.
I want to thank you for what you're doing, and I know you're still finding your way around. I think it's important that you are out there in the community and people start to see your face and identify you as someone here at the town that they can come to and have just a place to come and ask those questions. Continue to promote, the design studio, let people know about the sewer hookup and all of those things. Very important as far as our public relation is. Appreciate you getting out there, attending events. I know that's on your own time. Appreciate you being in the community.
Thank you. And on that note, actually, I am planning to do some sort of public meeting, town hall, less formal than a town hall, but my brain can't think of another word for it. But when we have some updates, right? So we're working on this update on the mobile home placement. We're working on updates to the design studio. We're making some progress on some of the dirt road paving projects that are going on. And so we want to make sure that we are just out in the community sharing that information. So we'll be working on that and hopefully looking around maybe September or so to have a meeting out in the community at a good time that works for folks, and just talk about some of the updates that we're having, some of the projects and programs that we offer, and any changes, just having that clear communication and even an opportunity for, education if we need to, as far as how these processes and applications and permits and all that stuff works. Nothing final yet, but that's on my mind, and I'm thinking we don't have a meeting in July, so I might want to go ahead and say that now. So just keep your eyes out for that, and I'll be planning that and work with you all on that as well.
The one other item that I want to mention too, again, is the Homes for Harmony, or Harmony for Homes, I believe it is, concert we're doing on the 28th of June at First Presbyterian Church, Christian pop artist and myself. But more importantly, it's a major fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity, Low Country. So hopefully we'll start hearing more about that. I do believe that Natalie in the Office of Cultural Affairs is involved in representing the town in that capacity. Getting some great community engagement as it is already. I know that the Surge Group has stepped up as a major sponsor, and others like Palmetto Dunes and Sea Pines have also joined in that effort. Something we all know that it's important to address as far as workforce and affordable housing in our community. So I'm encouraging all of us, even from the task force and the community, to come out and support that concert.
Could you repeat that date?
28th, 7 to 9. Artist's name is Mac Powell from Third Day. Everybody's familiar with the group Third Day.
That's all that I have, if anyone has any other questions. Good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we have discussion items, a district planning update.
Hello, everyone. Ashley Goodrich, Principal Planner. Let me bring this presentation up on your screen. So the town of Hilton Head Island has committed to implementing a strategic action plan, of which the land management LMO ordinance updates are a significant high priority project. The town conducted a critical review of the LMO and plans to amend, incorporate new policy changes. Some of the LMO has already been submitted to town council. It's been ongoing since last fall, September, November, and then through to January. So a few of these you may have already seen or heard about. We also have our district planning initiative, which is going to be a growth management strategy to include district plans, a future land use map, and will be later this year a supplemental element to the land use of our plan, the comprehensive plan. The district planning is meant to be an umbrella for our island, and how we take the more broad idea of what the island is and then break that down into districts that may combine the multiple neighborhoods. And then that will further break down into the future LMO amendment phases later in the fall. But let me start kind of at the beginning for our phases in the LMO, and then I'll be able to show you what our district plans are going to be. Phase 1 was approved by town council. A big part of the packet for phase 1, it had quite a bit of significant, I would say, strategic small changes throughout the code. And the big one was we removed waivers for staff administration. So there are specific areas of our performance standards and other areas where when staff was working on your permits, your development plan permits and things like that, they could say, well, here's 15% leeway, so to speak, as a waiver, without going to our BZA, Board of Adjustments and things like that. By removing the waivers out of the LMO code, it is a stricter interpretation of the code. It's also meant to be as clear and concise as possible. And so what we may or may not see later down the road might be a few more items to the BZA board. If you're looking for something related to setbacks or buffers or things like that. But the goal is to, for something like let's say your adjacent buffers, if it's something between 25 and 35 feet or 40 feet, depending on a commercial, non-residential use type, it would not be the staff that can say, okay, well, you're close to the average. We're going to strictly interpret what that average, what that number would be based upon what's in the code. We did update how plantings are required on single-family lots as a part of the certificate of compliance. What that means is that when you are working through your building permit and construction and you're getting your inspections and things like that, you can, for plantings, for landscaping, we have provided a new option that will allow those plantings to be installed at a later time, so forth as while you are working on your construction, the plantings themselves would not get damaged or suffer or anything. And what that is in the certificate of compliance, your final certificate of compliance is what allows you to move in and turn the lights on and everything. But for plantings, sometimes the plantings can kind of get in the way of the rest of that construction process. A last one to point out for phase one would be the changeable copies for signage. We are slowly changing some things in signs. For changeable copy would be similarly to a gas station or a storefront. There's some timing meant to be with that so that you wouldn't see something change all the time. We're still in the code looking at about once or twice a day. But it could be done electronically versus manually. Sort of the thing you may see, changeable copy would be like at a baseball field in the ballpark, and the guys in the back putting the signs out one by one, or, making that a digital format. So. Phase two was approved by town council, which provided standards for deviation from previously plotted subdivisions. These standards were listed through to basically put performance standards onto a re-subdivision and that re-subdividing process, including to make sure that the planning commission would review those items. Deviation standards previously plotted, I know that it sounds kind of like a circular sentence, but as our island ages and we move forward, we probably will sometimes see a lot more re-subdividing of land instead of just saying whole subdivisions of land, especially since as certain land parcels, lots get smaller and smaller. Phase three was also gone to town council. This was at the beginning of May. We updated the definition for single family. We updated the definition for multifamily, and we eliminated divisible dwelling units, or otherwise known as lockout units. Eliminating divisible dwelling units in a way would update our density calculation. Divisible would be fractions. And also with our definition for single family, multifamily, in a short language, single family means one. So one dwelling unit, one single family. Multifamily moving forward would mean two or more. For the purpose of us here today, we do want to point out that family compounds and family subdivisions are categorized as a single family use. So occasionally, something may come up where that question may arise and the difference of performance standards, setbacks, and buffers. But as we do occasionally may encounter some of those things related to family compounds or subdivisions, we hope to work through that in design studios and make sure that we're putting the right permit and product together for those who are looking to develop on their land or property. Just before, at the bottom of this page is phase 4A, and we have also phase 4 on the next slide. We have had in phase 4 a few different topic items be asked and expressed to be prioritized. We had family compounds and subdivisions added back in April to May. And then we also have been asked about floor area ratio and parking. Right now, these residential site design standards are currently in staff review. So I do, just for today, want to just kind of let you know that those are some of the priority topics in phase 4. But I can maybe only answer a few questions for it at the moment because we don't have necessarily all the answers solved today. Phase 4, which is currently in staff review, is administrative applications and procedural changes, family compound and family subdivisions, updated site design standards, including parking, open space, setback angles. We will be updating our traffic impact analysis methodology. As you may remember, traffic impacts were a discussion earlier this year, back in January, and we changed the time of the year that we make the analysis from June to July. Just changing the date and relatively in a summer month, we may have better different traffic numbers. So that was a change that has already been made. What we further are doing with traffic impact is we're looking for best in class. We're looking at the latest ITE engineering manuals, and we're modifying a little bit more of our methodology so that we can do better and higher performance of our traffic impacts. That would be the same for stormwater and our stormwater requirements. Our engineering team here in-house has gone through all of the stormwater requirements. We're looking at 100-year storms. We're looking at the way drainage goes through, the way sometimes a calculation may be made on your open space and your property and things like that on the stormwater component. And then we're adding some construction management plan requirements, which is a little bit of saying, we want those construction sites to be well taken care of so that the dirt or grime or, things in the construction moment are not falling off of one property to another and things stay orderly. And then finally, we will have some more signage updates forthcoming. A lot of signs in multiple cities and states around the country have been affected due to a Supreme Court case called Gilbert versus Arizona that was about 2018-ish or so. And so we have to, at this point, update our sign ordinance to reflect what that Supreme Court case particularly was about. And that'll be really, really interesting for the town. I think when we that's in legal review right now, and as we finish that piece of the phase 4 component, you may find it rather interesting. Phase 5, which we are hoping to come a little bit later this year after our district planning and initiative process, will be a comprehensive review of all LMO chapters. We are considering it a rewrite of the LMO. This is to review the overall organization. We're looking at the user friendliness of the code. We're looking at the order and format of the content. We'd like to have an addition for better design guidance, as well as an application manual so that all of our applications are in one place in one area. And we want to make sure that as we work through the growth framework and district plan initiative that our LMO can reflect some of those new things and better district planning that we may or may not come up or come out of with that. Do we have any questions about the LMO amendments at this time?
Right.
I had one question. So with the new changes and updates that you have on the LMO, and if you already had an existing project going on, how would that affect that project in terms of the different things that you have changed or in the process of changing?
So typically with an ongoing project, when someone applies and they complete their application, whether you're going to build a home or you're going to develop a commercial property, the code as is approved by council by ordinance or law would apply at the time your application is submitted and complete. Sometimes folks may, in a general sense, think of that as grandfathering in a way, but and I can say that sometimes when we do make LMO amendments, we want to do them as close together in particular time periods as much as possible so that it's not a constant change. We also have our development review team staff that have to keep track of these new changes to the code. So the most latest one that passed at the beginning of May, we've handed out to all of our staff and team members and such forth. It will take us time to have our code as a book reprinted. And it also takes a little bit of time to have it updated to the Muni Code website. But those are kind of some procedural process things. They don't typically take too much time. We had both in the past here at the town had our community development team update the LMO, and then in a very similar process, any ordinance that's passed by town council is also updated and sent to web by the administration staff. So.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask, but you answered that and earlier when you were saying that. So this process, it depends upon when the codes are changed as to how often you have to update or revisit going back over and constantly. It's a constant rollover, I'm assuming.
It can be, but what I would say is we do our best to try to keep it as structured in blocks as much as possible. So that's kind of why we've had phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we are calling phase 5 the what would be the future full rewrite. We do have a request for qualifications under procurement review right now, and we hope to, within the next 30 days, put that RFQ out. And that we do have on-call consulting available for code rewrite, code services. That's something that we have in our wheelhouse as a toolkit all the time. But we will be putting a new RFQ out relatively soon, particularly for the phase 5, the full rewrite. Sure.
Yes, just one more question. Mr. Malik, I believe you have.
Yes, I do have a question. The phase 1, it says here, allow variances for all sections of the LMO except or other than use, density, or height.
That is correct. So similarly to when I spoke about the staff waivers being removed out of the code, we also opened up the availability for a property owner to apply for a variance for, not to generalize, but say it's anything in the LMO but those 3 things. But that is sort of the specific wording of that. So your height limitation, if you had, let's say it's 45 feet and you wanted to build something that was 55 feet, you wouldn't be able to apply for a variance for that. You simply have to work within your, the 45 feet limitation. If you are in, let's say, working on a setback for an accessory structure or a deck or, a front yard setback of some sort, and you need an extra 5 feet on your property, for whatever reason, there just might not be enough room, you could then apply for the variance. A variance it has its own warrants and recommendations at the BZA. So when you apply for a variance, it goes before a board such as yourselves to be approved or disapproved or denied, I guess.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, the whole issue of the Gullah task force, or not, I would say the whole issue, but a part of our big concern was having the flexibility for land use in particular, because, it's not like we have acres and acres of land to be developed, but if we are, 1/10% of being able to qualify to do something on the property, we wanted to at least have some flexibility in that regard.
So the difference in the flexibility is that as a tool, the flexibility is available for you. However, it would have an additional step in its own application in order to be approved by the Board of Zoning Adjustments. Our BZA as a board is reflected upon a state law of South Carolina. And also, at the same time, it's a vote of your peers. Versus when we had these staff granted waivers, the thing is that going to BZA for a variance, it would remove the discretion or indiscretion and so forth.
And, and again, I support the removal of those staff granted waivers because, of, you never know how they're being used. I understand that part. So let me just ask another question. At the phase 5, you said there's a potential there that Alamo could be rewritten. Means that the density and those things could change.
So, to speak about that in particular, one part of this, and this is why the rewrite will be much later in the fall to after we complete our district planning initiative and the growth framework comprehensive planning process. It's been referred to quite a bit as an illustrative master plan. It is a supplement and will be a supplement to our comp plan, the R plan, because our R plan will be due for a minor update by about 2025. And that's some other priorities of the comp plan is a 10-year document as required by state law as well, and those kinds of things. So we're trying to time everything so that as the R plan needs to be looked at, we'll have this land use element relatively put together and finished so that procedurally the R plan can have that minor update and move forward in its timeline. And that's not a this year thing, but it is 24 months or so forthcoming in the future. One thing about LMO amendments and code amendments, because we're talking about zoning and we're talking about specific performance standards, is that we don't necessarily want to create any additional nonconformities to the code. And we analyze that as we are working on all of these amendments and these changes. But we also don't want to be arbitrary and capricious about the changes that we make. And that's a lot of why, from a pyramid or an umbrella, if you start with your comprehensive planning that's relatively broad and then you work that back down into something more specific, you have the guidance and intent behind you and the things that what you were trying to do. So the full LMO rewrite, I can't say that we have anything specific that we're going to change this density here, because it's still a little too early to say so, if that makes sense. But the goal would be when you do rewrite the entire LMO chapter is that you are being consistent with your comprehensive plan.
Okay, and again, I guess this is my overall question is, when I look at, what I see is things that's being put in place that are kind of sort of restricting some of the historical uses that Gullah families have had with the land. My question is, how does this help us preserve our presence and our culture?
So I could probably answer that a little bit better for you if we move on to our district plan initiative. The district plan initiative today for you have a series of maps that are each of the districts as a draft, as an initial component. The district planning itself is a community engagement, community planning process that puts the content into precisely what you're speaking about. And so when we have a few things that we're looking at for the district plan, such as what we want to consider and what we want to conserve and what we want to protect.
Okay.
I think those are good questions. Those are part of the questions that I had as well, as you move forward and the experiences that staff has as they look at these LMO amendments should be influenced by our plan. The other item there was the sustainable development incentives, something that I think you just spoke to, but many of us participated in that our plan, and certainly that section in there about cultural preservation and engagement. I'm trying to tie a lot of these things together. The cultural and history program that the task force has put together, hopefully that's something that is in front of staff when they're out in the community looking at these different areas, interacting. I think those are important pieces. We kind of answered some of that today, but as we're going forward and when we get to that phase 5, those things are going to be very, very important to look back and make sure that we address some of those issues.
Absolutely. And I think a big part to that is when we talk about community engagement, we talk about our district identification, it's not just one person that can figure that out. It does take a village. And we, as we are, even right now, we're still framing out what we want that work order to be for, that process flow. We've talked about charrettes. We've talked about a few town hall, call it a science center type of thing, because we have multiple districts, so we have multiple areas of the island, and we also can do some of the mapping side of things. That's computer analysis. Mapping is actually very easy these days as opposed to might have been 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. But the content behind what those maps are, that's what's really very highly important.
Questions for? That's very important work, and it certainly is quite a bit ongoing as usual.
So we are excited here to bring forth to you today our draft districts for the district planning initiative. We have a series of 8 districts that comprise the island that relatively is all property not already contained in a planned unit development or the PUDs. And this is where, as we've brought forth this topic, the PUDs themselves, they have binders and binders in their master plan communities. And the thing to that is that it maybe to use the right words, the wrong words, it might have been a little unfair that the rest of the island wasn't as masterly planned over time as the way some of them were. The goal of the district planning is to create sort of a, not, I want to use the word regional, but regional in a neighborhood sense. Because as we break down further into the LMO, we break down into zoning, the biggest part about talking about zoning, and as we look at the island today, is you have your current zoning of what you are right now at the moment, but then you have your future land use and what reasonably your future land use could be in the tomorrow. This isn't just for right now or 10 years from now or 5 years from now. This could be 20 to 50 years from now. Where do you see the land use? Where do you see the development of the island going? So this is a little bit of an extra level that Hilton Head has not had before. One thing to think about when we create districts, and we're talking about it from our land use elements, is that you can start to differentiate things a little bit further. You can also create different economic opportunities and varieties of districts because they're scalable. It's kind of creating another scale of things to look at. We want to take each of the 8 districts that you see before you and replicate the planning process that we did with the Mid-Island Initiative. The Mid-Island Initiative came out last year in 2022, and it was a look at some of our airport planning and economics tied to that. It was a look at a large park project and sort of urban forestry connectivity. And then Mid-Island also looked at future land use, and then what can be done in some of these older commercial spaces that may be hitting their life cycle and due for some revamping. The Mid-Island, we don't really foresee Mid-Island being completely done. If, as we work through the district planning initiative, if we can kind of counter new information that we want to update Mid-Island as well, we may do so. But we do want to try to take certain, these components of the island and put forth a very similar, detailed for each area, for each district. Let me move on. I have a slide for each district. If anyone has any general questions about it overall, I could answer them now, or I can go through each one.
Yes, Mr. Hens.
Ashley, this is terrific. I mean, this is what planning's all about, so I commend you and the staff for putting this together. So, and I really like being able to focus on different areas, not as a whole. So excellent, outstanding. Question is, these districts incorporate any historical neighborhoods, or are they not part of the historic neighborhoods?
I'm glad you asked that, because they do. And one piece of the districts as you see them today is that we have tried to and wanted to make sure and maintain that each historic neighborhood would be self-contained in a district. The Spanish Wells area and closer to Marshland Road, the reason why the Marsh is district number 1 is in the shape and color that it is, because it's a good example. There's almost 5 separate historic communities in that area, and we did not want to break them up.
Now, does that suggest that we could plan over those communities? We could plan on what happens in those historic communities? Is that why it's in a master plan?
I would say yes to that. There's quite a few different things you can do in a historic preservation community realm. There's both your National Register, your history side of it. There's also your cultural resources side of it. There's a little bit of difference in the nuance as to how that, I don't want to say plays out, because there's a traditional way to do historic preservation. It involves demolition permits. It's really about the property structure. And then you have the cultural resources side of it. That's about your culture and community and that piece of it. So it can be both. What this will probably do in the long run is allow where we have the historic communities set up today. We do have a historic communities map in our LMO. It's a town approved map. And as we talk about these districts, and so maybe the short answer is to say you have neighborhoods of scale, and then you have your historic communities. And yes, you could start to differentiate it, provided you follow at least a consistent structure in this process.
And again, I think that's why the educational program that we develop here with the task force is so important when we're talking about planning in these districts and being sensitive to those historic neighborhoods. I don't want to keep sound like a broken record, but of course, the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force is why we're here. So that is my focus and that is my priority. And as I understand it, it's still a priority of the town. So when we talk about the culture of the area, the culture of the town, certainly local culture, my focus and priority is on the Gullah Geechee culture.
And something to think about a little bit historically for our planning and zoning is, we've had a variety of different plans over several years. The Ward 1 plan, we have a Stony zoning district, we have a Mitchellville zoning district. And one thing to say is, I don't want to preempt anything and say those things may change as we move into the new LMO, but we do want to take this district initiative process and look at everything comprehensively. So that's where when we talk about our historical communities, we have several of them. Sometimes differentiating one over the other may not actually be usable, or then at the same time, putting them all in one lump isn't quite the same either, because there could be the differences between them too. So that would be where, we do kind of foresee some of those things that we want to ask those questions a little bit later down the road. Just because I will raise my hand and say that having a few zoning districts for certain areas, but then maybe missing some of these other components, that's where, as a historical preservation process, you can look at it from a historical angle more and the whole. So.
Ashley, can you share with us like those historic communities that you?
I can. So in our first district, the Marshes district, we have Jonesville, Jarvis, Old House Creek, Spanish Wells, and Gardner. Jonesville is located near Jarvis Creek, and historically the people in the community were known as laborers, wheelwrights, shoemakers, businessmen, and carpenters. Spanish Wells is located near the Sound. Old House Creek and Broad River was named for the Spanish explorers that traveled from Florida and dug freshwater wells around Broad Creek. The Gullah and Spanish Wells were known for fishing, crabbing, and oyster harvesting. Gardner is home to the largest Gullah extended family on Hilton Head. Let me see, let me flip my page here. If you want me to read through.
No, you don't,
Okay.
you don't have to read all of them, but could you identify those, what you have in terms of the town having that in their LMO, so that I would like to see a copy of that if possible.
Sure. So you'd like to see, so when the historic community map was created, it was created also at the same time as the family compound and subdivisions. I think this was between 2019 with the task force and then 2021 with family subdivisions. So we can definitely just, from a map standpoint, supply that for you. I believe each of the individual communities, the detail to what's contained with them and that knowledge may be actually contained more so in the task force reporting and some of the research that went into that. But we want to, as part of these districts, is we want to make sure we emphasize in each district chapter that where there are the communities located, that we will have an emphasis on them. We do want to, as we work on each of the districts, we want to be able to have a document that you can take and say, this is just this one district. And then you also have the larger volume that is all of them, such as different chapters in a book. It'll make our plan, the comprehensive plan, a little bit thicker when we get done.
And I'm interested in just to hear and read the narrative of it as to how it's written, and, the things that you identify as to why it's a historic area, and especially if it's written.
Okay. Let me move on to the second district. Right now, we have named it as Skull Creek. It is largely representative of the Stony area. We do want to say up front that there may be boundaries that could be adjusted. There could be further topics of conversation to really finalize what these districts are and what they're called and things like that. So we wanted to give a title to each one that was relatively clear, but we also want to follow back up. That's just making sure that staff has a name to it. So, when we're talking about it, we're talking about it. But as we work through our community engagement later this summer, if everybody raises their hand and they want to change the name, well, we will do that too. So, but right now, the district number 2 is Skull Creek. It's actually a very diverse district. We have some thoughts when we talk about conserving or considering, and that's conserving our resources, conserving our environmental, or are we considering economic development? Are we considering long-term future land use possibilities? This is where when we work through Skull Creek, we're going to be asking a lot of those questions back and forth. And it may be a relatively diverse district where we have some conserved type properties, but then we may come to sort of a majority agreement in our planning process that says people still want to consider its open and future possibilities. The Main Street district is sort of an in-between from the Skull Creek area and the Mid-Island. And one thing to think about for this area is that it's relatively majorly commercial property. The town has some projects ongoing in Main Street where we're working on the right-of-way and acquiring the Main Street area. And we foresee where, as a commercial property, we might want to make this a consideration area for where we could direct some future growth that would then in turn maybe help us protect some of our more sensitive areas. The Mid-Island, as you may have seen before, is largely, it's our airport area. It has historic communities contained in Mid-Island. It has commercial areas. It has large open space and park space. And so this is really the basis of where we started with through last year. And we want to work forward in each of the other areas and the other districts. For Chaplain for us, so forth right now is we're considering it a conserved district. We have some dynamic things happening in Chaplain where from a strategic analysis and we may say growth or conservation. Chaplain is the district that comes to mind when you use the word growth. Are you speaking about physically growing? Are you looking at, maybe that other side of growth of just relative change or change may not even be the right word either, but just some systematic alterations over time. Maybe nothing always stays the same. Maybe it kind of moves along in its own tandem, its own space, its own time. One of the things we plan on looking at in all the districts is we plan on taking a little bit of our corridors planning from capital improvements. We want to look at our roadways. We want to look at our systems. We want to look at access. We also want to look at where we might have diverse communities and where some of those things are hitting up against each other, and then where can we do some things a little bit better at a district large scale, and that may help when we break down into smaller neighborhoods and smaller neighborhood needs. The Parkway segment is primarily on Business 278. It runs from the Shelter Cove area to Arrow Road. It is mostly commercial property in nature, but we are looking at, as a consideration for this district, it being that it's a core corridor area, but it does have some significant environmental edges. So when we talk about that, consider, protect. We want to protect our assets. We want to protect our sensitive areas, but then we want to be able to see what is that consideration going to be. The Forest Beach District is comparably to some other parts of the island. It is relatively more developed and built out than others. But we do have some very distinct differences that we know between our residential areas of Forest Beach and our commercial areas such as Coligny and the Circle District. So Forest Beach, as we move forward and we work particularly on this district, we may end up having in our district planning, our emphasis, looking to look at things from a consideration standpoint to economically grow, but we may also look at from a residential standpoint to consider, protect, and conserve. So this district, because for the most part, on a zoning standpoint and a land use standpoint, either end is high residential and the middle is very clearly commercial. Start to think of those lines at a district level where we will sort of break those things down a little bit further from one to the other. And then our last district is the Bridge to Beach. You all may be aware that we've done some economic studies for this area. The Forest Beach District and some prior older Bridge to Beach planning would have included going down further to Coligny versus just Sea Pine Circle. But what we want to emphasize for this area is it is the sort of a gateway corridor coming off the Cross Island. It has some residential and environmental sensitivities, and then it also has a high commercial area that's relatively on high ground in the middle of the island. And what do we need to plan for a long-term future land use and the consideration of what that could be. That is the last of all of the districts. If you all have any individual questions or you want to go back to one particular district over the other to take a look at. We do have the presentation available for you to take home today. And as we work a little bit forward on setting up I would say our full engagement timeline for this summer, we'll have this available on the website. We're still kind of in the process of getting it posted to the website, so it'll be due forth and coming soon. Our growth management plan or conservation and growth map that you may have heard about, I don't have it here today for you all. It's still in a revisioning process. To put it quite simply, we presented the growth framework map to Public Planning Committee back in April. And as we worked on the initial design of that map, we wanted to focus on having the island be seen in a little bit more of a regional, larger, higher scale level. So what that physically means is that if you zoom in too far in your mapping, you kind of got to blow it back out and put it back in a proportional perspective. When we say growth framework, on a planning side, the style, the technique, the toolkit, it's called a growth framework map. But we have been in a sort of a research discussion to think about it as conservation, limit that use word of growth, because we may not necessarily want to physically grow any bigger. We just simply want to grow in our knowledge and awareness, and so to speak. But a growth framework map, it's sort of a higher level than your future land use. Your future land use breaks down to your zoning, and then your zoning maps, your zoning districts break down to your LMO code. So you're getting about 5 levels of from comprehensive at a broad, high level down to a more nitty-gritty direct level. So.
Yes, Mr. Malik, you have a question?
I do. I guess the first question I had was about the piece that I saw connected to Buck Island in the last district.
We didn't want to leave Buck Island off the map. So you may need a boat to get there. But in terms of where we have our district boundaries, right now, Buck Island is included because we just didn't want to leave it out. It is part of our town. It's in our town boundaries. There may or may not be in one or two places such as Main Street or in the Parkways corridor, that would be number 3 and number 6. There may be a few commercial properties that on our planning and zoning side of things, such as Shelter Cove, it may be technically be a PUD property, but it's particularly the commercial property. It's that open to the public, shopping centers and things like that. And so we want to make sure all of the commercial areas that we have open available are available in our districts. But at the same time, when I speak of it that way, we're talking about maybe 1%, one parcel here, one parcel there. And that's where, as we zoom in on each of these districts, and we work through the planning process, we may, there may be a boundary still altered to an extent.
Yeah, I guess the other question I have would relate to the airport, Mid-Island, Mid-Island District. I think in the process of us learning about this development with the expansion of the airport and with the development of Mid-Island Track, there was some conversation about the Gullah community having a kind of a permanent, perpetual presence there for economic purposes. And I think we're at a point now where I would like to know if the town is committed to that.
I would say the short answer is yes. I know there's a variety of different projects around the airport, particularly moving the church and some things where you have a very significant historical property. And then you have the cultural side to that that's very sensitive. I do not know all of the details of those things, but I would say yes, the town, not just in that one I mentioned, but in all things, it is important to the town as they work through those. That location is a good example of multiple jurisdictions. It's also a good example of the preservation process. When we talk about protecting property, we talk about the formal preservation process.
I guess my comment is such that it would be beneficial because the Mid-Island area is the first district to kind of sort of get started, to have it established that the Gullah community will have a permanent presence in both that district as well as the airport itself. There's been several conversations amongst the leadership of our community on that subject. And I believe it kind of sort of got bogged down at the county level. A commitment from the town could probably remove that hindrance.
I'm going to throw that one back to Krishana so that we can get you an update for that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. Thank you, Mr. Balik. There has been some conversations in our leadership in the community about having a presence, especially at the airport, opportunities as well. So it's important to mention that early in these discussions when we're talking about district planning. As you mentioned earlier, from a 10,000-foot level, we look at things. Start drilling down, we want to make sure that some of those pieces are. Thank you for that, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to add to that, that there has been conversation with the airport and Mitchellville in the area and looking at some economic opportunities for the Gullah community in the area with the airport. So there are some things that's already in process with that. And as they come up, I would definitely share those as well. You're welcome.
Just out of curiosity, so the other 7 master districts are going to be patterned after the process that we went through with the Mid-Island master district. What's the latest on the Mid-Island master district? Is it finished? Is it halfway through? What's
So what we could possibly do is the plan itself, the document plan is finished. There's an action plan and there's strategic items towards the back of that document. And that's where we hope to also have a strategic action plan or strategic action document for each of the other districts, almost very similar to the task force here today and where you are in your task force items. On Mid-Island, there's some work being done in that area I believe tied to some of our workforce housing initiatives. There's some things being put into the parks master plan. The airport, of course, is an ongoing economic workhorse that is also, the airport is growing. It's grown rapid relatively over a short amount of time. And there's a lot of service-oriented businesses in those areas that may or may not, by a zoning standpoint, may not exist in other parts of the island. So there's quite a bit of different things there. What I would say is, to be exact on that, I'd have to pull the action list, and then I'd have to check in with all the different departments of the town and give you an update to that too. But maybe perhaps we can get an itemized or short paragraph.
Sure, there'll be an item-wide update on master plan eventually. Sure.
I would say, though, that the action items for that, from a district level to our town level, is that they do influence and they build into our strategic planning for the town. So when you look at your annual budget and you look at our priority items that I believe are going to town council later this week, tomorrow, the next day. So it does influence, it does build in. But I will always, with a caveat, say project to project, the hardest thing in determining priority is getting the projects in the right list when we know they're all priority projects. Okay, good.
Okay, I'm going to try to move this item along unless we have some other burning questions. Have anything else for us on this?
I don't think so, and thank you for letting me present today.
Thank you. That's a lot of good work. Thank you, Ms. Ashley. I want to pause for just a minute, and Councilman Brown is still here. I think he might be able to help us and maybe even tie some of these things together, give a little bit more in-depth information on the Community Development Corporation. Brown, if you would avail yourself.
Afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. Let me just start with saying that I'm so appreciative of staff, not only keeping you all updated and involved, but at least from my vantage point, I am starting to see some change in effect with the mention of the processes being improved and streamlined. And I appreciate all the comments from the task force as far as future improvements along the way. I just wanted to say a few things about the Gullah Geechee Historic Community Development Corporation. We had our first meeting, as Ms. Jackson Perry mentioned. We elected the officers of the board. Okay, Ms. Shirley Peterson is the president, chairwoman. Pastor Lewis Johnson is the vice chair. Mr. Brubaker is the secretary, whom he was a little bit concerned about that because he thought he was going to have to take notes and supply minutes, but we'll have support from staff to do so. And yours truly is the treasurer of the organization. We will be meeting again this week to narrow down over 90 applicants for the executive director position, okay? We will have a series of course, session discussions around setting up interviews and that sort of thing. We've talked a little bit about making sure that that process includes the public as we move forward, okay? But that's the first order of business. We need someone that's going to wake up every morning to do that job, okay? So we'll get that done. That will be followed by a production of a strategic plan, okay? The bylaws have kind of set out the rules of engagement, so to speak, but we need to put together a strategic plan, and the committee, of course, will definitely be involved in that process. We will also be taking action this week on our meeting schedule for the year, of which we've asked that we have at least one meeting per quarter in the community, not just here in Town Hall, okay? So we are steadfast and pressing forward with that. Do welcome the interaction with the task force as we move along. But those public meetings and the production of that strategic plan, I think, is where we really can start to engage to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, okay?
And you mentioned those 4 members who holding office now. Are there other members on the?
Councilman Ames is the one that drew the lucky straw and didn't get any assignments, but he's the 5th member of the organization, okay?
Good questions for Councilman Brown. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, next item we have on our agenda is the LMO Phase 4 Family Subdivision and Family Compound. Did we kind of cover that already, or something different?
So we provided family compound and subdivisions in the previous report when we were speaking about the LMO. But it can talk a little bit more specifically on family compound and subdivisions. We're currently working on ways to take comments back from several of the applications that have been received for, by, and to the town, and the ones that are complete or incomplete, and figuring out, I don't want to say tinkering with the puzzle, but we want to look at some of the performance standards and what's maybe making them a little bit complicated, and how can we be a little bit more clear and easier for folks to apply for that process. Right now, for family compound and subdivisions, there's some rules tied to the point of development. When you're working on a family subdivision or compound, there's also the landscaping requirements and what can be done if perhaps there's already more than enough landscaping supplied as is. We also just in general, because we are talking about a formal land recordation process, we have a few questions we've sent to legal review, and we're kind of waiting to get back some clarifications from them. And that's just but not to get too far in the weeds, but in anything when you're speaking about subdividing land and property, we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Questions or comments? Okay, we covered a lot of this in the previous report, and I know this is ongoing. Good?
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to the last item on our agenda, which is the adjournment. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate the hard work of Ms. Krishana. Actually, thank you for so much. There's a wealth of information, and it shows, as Councilman Brown says, that there's a lot of work going on at the staff level, and we're seeing some movement and some changes in what we're doing in the community here. So I want to thank the public, thank Attorney Ed for being here as well as always. And again, happy birthday to our own Mr. Barnwell. Councilman Brown, thank you for your information as well. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you. Have a great day.